Hi, I'm Matt Howe with Howe Equipment. I'm next to my cousin Dan Howe, and here at Howe Equipment, we are a certified Toro dealer, so we really specialize and do a lot in lawn and garden, and we sell Echo products as well. Besides that, we've added trailers to the lineup, so we sell enclosed, open and enclosed trailers, and we also sell a really high volume of used power sports and used zero-turn mowers. So pretty much how it all started, I was teaching, and I was, had family where I had a, young kid, and we were living in a house that was probably right on the edge of our means financially. It wasn't like we shouldn't be in the house, but I was kind of looking at the bank account and I'm thinking I'd rather see it steadily go up than just sit at the exact same thing, and that's maybe a teacher's salary, maybe a common thing to be thinking. So I was always kind of thinking, my wheels were always turning how to have some kind of secondary income as a teacher. So that's really, all the way to the point now of a Toro dealership, where it really began, some of those wheels turned in my head. So it was nowhere along the lines of equipment where I necessarily thought that it would go. I had tried a lot of different things, but some of the entrepreneurial thoughts that started to kind of ensue in the beginning of that was things like going to an estate sale, literally looking around the room and thinking, I was actually, some of the really early stages for me was looking, and I saw a church pew sitting in the entranceway at this estate sale, and I just thought it was worth a fair bit more than what I saw it priced at. And it was kind of just something in the back of my head that I always, to me, entrepreneurship is all about taking action. It's about doing. There's a lot of things people think about doing, but taking the action, taking the risk. And so I finally, that moment, said, why don't I actually try something instead of thinking about trying it? So I bought this church pew among a few other things at this estate sale. Bought and sold it, made some money on those things, and that was to me a venture of risk taking as an entrepreneur. That house that was kind of putting me on the brink of, should I be in this house or not, I decided, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to take action, basically. So what I did is I sold that house I was living in, and I moved into kind of along the lines of flipping, so to speak. I bought a fixer-upper house, got pretty darn good equity on it, really did everything myself inside the house, redid the house, top to bottom. What it's turned into now, I've bought so much stuff, I've really learned to sell. I've really learned to enjoy selling, like trying to set someone up the right way on the back end of things. So it kind of stemmed with me first just loving getting the great deal, buying something. And when I was at that house, I redid the house, some of those other things, random things like washers and dryers. I had a little phase where I was buying and selling washers and dryers. One of the things, that's where I really just started trying stuff, right? You're looking on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, you're trying all sorts of different random things. At one point in time in the venture of different things I bought and sold, I bought and sold a really beat up, cheap riding lawnmower, and that was really just the introduction of equipment, I guess, but it's really different from what I even ended up doing from that point forward. The thing about mowers is you can really take it through the entirety of a cycle, let the mower run at its highest revving state. You can turn the blades on. You can kind of actually test something out a little bit better, I think, beforehand. And so I experimented with a zero-turn mower, and I grew up in the sports world, playing basketball. I played golf when I grew up, and so I didn't have tons of hands-on experience with equipment. I didn't start this business actually knowing the internal workings of an engine or anything like that. I did it with a zero-turn mower, made some money doing that. Well, I got hooked on mowers, these zero-turn mowers, and this is right at the start of the summer. I think I bought my first one of these mowers, and I think the end of the first summer I'd probably bought and sold, I think it was around 30 zero-turn mowers just the first summer. That's with me knowing nothing about them, driving to go pick these things up, and I was buying things that really just needed more cosmetic type work. I wasn't really doing anything major with them. But as you go on, you do that, you got to learn all these different things. You buy a mower that's working well, and then all of a sudden it's not running, and a fuel pump goes out. Well, you learn a lot of lessons along the way. I met a lot of different people that kind of helped me. I think by the end of that first summer, maybe into the next summer, I was starting to call people, hey, I've got this mower that's 3 hours away, can you help me go pick it up? And that's when you think about a business, you're trying to think of jobs that you can replace your own self with, and that's when you start to grow a team of people. So that's what happened kind of is where it started to maybe look like a business. I had 4 or 5 mowers in my garage, in a 1/4 acre lot. And I was paying people, I was paying students that were, learning from me, but I was paying some of them, after hours to go pick up equipment. So it just really just stemmed all this way to the point of I was so focused, so passionate about it, and kind of built some of those things in there that I was making more money than teaching because I was so focused on it. And it's scary, when you're teaching, to give up the benefits and all those sorts of things. And so I made the leap, and I thought, if I'm able to do this off of a teaching job and split myself in the evenings and do this, what if I gave this 100%? What could happen? The height of that happening is when you get people on board like my cousin Dan, who's with me now and just such a huge part of the business, really growing and teaching him how it's so much bigger than maybe what you think.
Well, we were on a trip up north, and Matt was telling me that he wanted to quit his teaching job to sell lawnmowers full time, and I was completely against it. I said, Matt, you have children, you need benefits, you can't leave your teaching job. And 6 months later, I quit working for the prison after 14 years to work with him. I didn't, once I got in the business with Matt and kind of understood what was going on, it was a lot of fun. We really meshed well together, and it took right off.
So there's really a lot of things now that comes through the shop, and where we can really provide a lot of value. And we're selling things with a warranty after the fact. So people that maybe think they're getting a great deal, on the open market, that's where we've really almost changed a little bit of our clientele and who's coming through the door, because someone wants to know that it's been looked at and that it's safe to buy what they've got. Because I can't tell you enough times that we've bought stuff and there's so many things that need to be done, and that's something, where we can add that value. But it's been a wild ride, and to the point, obviously, we bought this commercial location a little over a year ago, and you add Toro as a line, and that's kind of the goal moving forward, is how many new brands you can get, but not just any brand, quality brands. Toro is a brand that we saw a lot of different ones, and we really believe in it. We've added RC enclosed trailers, which is really quality. We've added Echo, and so obviously we do a lot of power sports. It's on our radar. Can we land a big name power sports brand? So trying to think of how to expand. I've learned in the last 4 or 5 years how much ambition that I've got. How big can we make it go? Multiple locations or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of stuff on the horizon, but that's kind of just a take through the journey from here to now. It's been quite a bit. It's been kind of a wild ride that if you'd have told me I'd be the owner of an equipment dealership 5 years ago, I'd have said you're crazy, but here we are. Yeah, so my cousin coming into the mix, it's funny, you just think of all these little parallels, little nuances, because I think you gotta have a lot of drive. You have to have salesmanship to be able to help people, know how to communicate with people, and Dan certainly has that. But just little things, Dan and I growing up, coming afterwards, we both had the same truck and talking about the deal we got, right? So you kind of have that like-mindedness about, salesmanship and all that sort of stuff. But besides that parallel, just kind of tell them about what's going on. And it was not a 100% planned thing with Dan. Dan was, working for the prison system, and he went on a leave for a really short period of time. And that's where he was kind of inquisitive, like, what exactly do you have going on? Because he saw these things happen. I talked to him about quitting my teaching job. I talked to him about maybe how many mowers are coming in and out. It's a little bigger maybe than he thought to begin with. So he's asking a lot of questions about it, and so I kind of informed him of what's going on. And he said, well, why don't I, he just sounded interested, to a degree. So why don't you try this or try that for the business? And he kind of went all in head first, and very like-minded to how I am, and was really successful. This is when he's still technically at the prison, so we knew after like a month or two of him being involved, that he could really help us grow and succeed, and that's certainly what happened. So just kind of experimenting, bringing him in like that, and it's been really good. He's a huge piece to what we have going on here. Just his ability to relate, to communicate with people is better than anyone else out there that I know. So it's just a huge asset. And with him being blood, with him being family, he treats this, his title is Operation Management. He treats us like he's myself, like he's the owner, and it's huge to have that kind of asset on your team. And he kind of knows I'm maybe a little bit of the visionary, and sometimes he balances, got to level me out or keep me on track or think of the operational side of things. And so it's been a really good balance in that regard.
I like meeting new people and interacting with people, and finding a home for a piece of equipment. So customers come in and they may, they have a need. Whether it's a lawnmower or a side-by-side, or could be a tool or toy, right? That's our motto, right? Tool or toy, we have it. And finding a piece of equipment that matches their needs. It's rewarding. They're happy. We're happy. It's a very positive environment. I feel like I work in a big toy store. I think the best part is working around things that I like. It's a blast every day, whether it's on a four-wheeler or a brand new zero turn. It's a big toy store.
There's a really big balance to the business side of things and the customer service after the sale, because going through the piece of equipment, as you try to grow, you're trying to think of processes, because things can go wrong in business, right? Nothing's perfect. So from things that have happened in the past, or something pops up, or we've seen this issue, you implement a process really of, we should be checking X, Y, Z. I think we might have a 20 or 30 point inspection at this point of what to go through. And there's so many nuances that you really got to know. When you think of a zero turn mower, there's an engine, right, that everyone thinks about. There's transmissions. These transmissions can cost $500 to $2,000 depending on what it's on. And so the transmission's a huge expensive part, and there's a lot of inner workings in a transmission. The engine's kind of the same thing, and there's everything else in between on a machine. So they're really complicated things. And as we've continued to grow the business, learning the right types of equipment to get into, because we really want to try to set up doesn't make sense to buy something that's 25 years old and looks like it sat outside all of his life. That's not going to be something that's going to last you long term, right? So besides just adding the value and going through something top to bottom, knowing what is a smart used buy. Like, is it really smart to buy something that's in such bad a shape, So we try to get some machines that are lower mile, lower hour type machines, and you never know what's going to come through the door, but you definitely try to use that as a general rule of thumb, coming in. So yeah, that's certainly a big piece to trying to add the value. And we have 2 full-time mechanics here. Like I've stated, I wasn't necessarily the engine guy growing up, right? So you have to, forming the business is putting people in the place that are better than you in certain aspects, and that's certainly one. I can certainly, at this point, I've sold hundreds and hundreds of mowers. Like, I know quite a bit about a mower at this point over the course of 4 or 5 years. I've probably seen more than someone who's even been in landscaping their whole life. I've probably seen more mowers in my short 4 or 5 years just because of how many have come in and out. So I really know the nuances of what to look for. But some of those inner working, there's a lot that can go inside an engine, certainly, that you got to look at repairing or getting right. Yeah, Jackson for me, just even before the business side of things, I grew up kind of near Kalamazoo. My wife grew up near Dexter. Jackson was this middle piece. I went to Spring Arbor University, so that's kind of, Jackson has really just grown on me in this period of time. It wasn't a place I thought I'd necessarily live when I went to Spring Arbor. But the location where it's at in the state, and just there's actually a lot going on in Jackson that maybe people don't realize, right off the bat. And there's a lot of good people. There's a mix of the city versus the rural, and so that's kind of what we tap into with the equipment, is serving a lot more of that rural population. But it's a great place to be and to try to grow a business, I think, because it's a lot of hard working class people, and people that just want to be related to people, normal people like myself. And so it's definitely been a great place to be, ever since graduating college. No, it's a friendly place. It seems like people are happy to have another business here. And, there's other equipment dealerships in Jackson. Everyone puts their own kind of special sauce on things. It relates to maybe a different kind of customer. So I think that there's certainly a customer base that we are relating to in that sense. And you've got this kind of northwest area that we're in right now that I think there's plenty of need with the rural properties around this area that we've been able to help with. But yeah, we're like I said, we just try to be genuine people that can be easy to talk to and help you out with what your needs are. And I think that relates pretty well with the type of person, the type of people that are in Jackson. Yeah, it was a tough decision. People look at maybe the position that I'm in right now compared to a couple years ago and think that it's this phenomenally further along thing. The reality is you could do quite a bit higher volume of used activity from where we were than even where we're doing now. Now there's a focus on the brand new equipment. So my mindset, as I've learned to take the leaps of faith along the way of entrepreneurship, my mindset is not to be a guy who's opened a mom and pop lawn and garden store, that you can come in and see. I'm here for 80 years. Like, I want to be here for 80 years, but I'm looking, my sights are pretty darn high. How can we have multiple locations or scale or affect more people? I've got this itch to try to do something really big, something really grand. You can't do that without the phenomenal service that we're trying to put forward. So how can I figure out how to add as much possible value inside this business? Because that's ultimately how you're going to try to scale. So from the barn, not so much a scalable thing in my mind, on the used. And you think of brand new equipment and multiplications, all those sorts of things, that's a more scalable thing. And so that was kind of the line of thought. And it's funny, after being in this position, I was a guy who I always recommended buying something used. I always thought, get the deal on something used, but there is so much to be said for buying something brand new as well. It really depends on who you are, because if you're not a tinkerer, then I really don't necessarily know that it's always the best way to go, to buy something that's used. It depends. You can get something really lightly used and that's probably fine, but there's certainly a market, and there's just different people, right? There's certain people that are more apt to buy new versus used, but there's a lot of value, especially you think of the market nowadays with where it's at. So it just really depends on what it is. But that was kind of the line of thought, is how can we grow something really, really big? And Toro's been great for us. We've been one of the top Toro dealers in the nation, actually, after just one season. And there's people that come to our shop and they're looking at used and they end up buying a brand new Toro, or sometimes the opposite way around. So we've kind of got traffic from different sources that helps one side of the business versus the other. But we definitely want to grow in the new. Used has kind of been up until this point, but we've, like I've said this year, we've sold a heck of a lot of new Toros as well, and that's really a focus. Like, if you look around my showroom right now, I've got a lot of commercial equipment, and so that's kind of a thought process. How can we gravitate and help the commercial guys in town? Because we think that's where we can kind of set our sights for the future and making a bigger impact in Jackson.